hit this tree. Boom. Okay. This tree does not move. It's a mighty tree. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and in this video we're going to look at static bodies with Matter.js in Phaser 3 with ECS. Now, if you enjoy our ECS videos with Phaser 3 and Matter.js, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos on Phaser 3 and ECS. It is also the best way to support the channel. So now we have a tank moving in our game. It can steer, it looks pretty cool. But we may also want to add walls or different obstacles. So those could be added as static bodies. So to do that, we're going to just show you how to add trees. So this is similar to our arcade physics set of videos, doing a similar thing, creating static sprites of trees so that our tanks can run into them. So for these trees, we're going to need three different components, or three components to make up our trees. That is the position component, the matter sprite component, and this is the new one, the matter static sprite component. Now let's look at these components a little bit more. So now we looked at the first two components, the position and the matter sprite components in previous videos. The key component in this video to create a static sprite is the matter static sprite component that we're going to add, and it's going to be just a tag. That means it has no properties, just like our player component from the previous videos. We're just tagging any entity with this matter static sprite component as a static body component. So in our arcade physics video, you'll notice that we did it a different way. What we did is we created another sprite component type. So for example, if we want to do that here, we can create a matter static sprite component, have a texture property on that component, and then simply create a new system that only creates static matter sprites. Now you could do it that way as well here, but we're just showing you another way you can do it with this matter static sprite tag component. So now let's look at the system we need for this setup. So here's our system. We've seen our matter sprite system previously. So the new system is the matter static sprite system, and all it's going to do is take any entity with the matter static sprite component and then set the isStatic property to true. Now let's see how all this works in code. All right, so let's add some static tree. So the first thing we're going to do is create that matter static sprite component. So we already did that here. So matter static sprite. So let's look at this component. So it's very simple. So here it is, just like our player component, it's just a tag. So we basically create a const, a variable to store this in, and we just call it define component with nothing in it, and we've created this tag component that we can then use. So we've exported it. So now we can import it like we did here on line 12 in our scene. That's our matter ECS scene here. So we've imported it. Now we can use it. So let's make some trees. So we've already preloaded our tree large and small textures here. So here they are. And let's come down here and just go make a tree. Let's say large tree. So we're going to do add entity, and this is going to be a tree. So this dot world, let's just call this tree large. And now our large tree is going to have three components: the position, matter sprite, and matter static sprite. So let's go add component. First one is going to be the position component on our tree large. That's the ID of our tree. And let's give it a value here. So position x tree large, let's just say 400. And then y also 400. And then let's add component this dot world. We need matter sprites. So matter sprite tree large, and then matter sprite, we're going to give it a texture. So dot texture index into the tree large ID, and we're going to say textures dot tree large. And last thing here to make it static is we're going to add component this dot world matter static sprites. This is the tag component that we just created, and that's all we need to do. Now, no, well, let's just see. Let's bring up Chrome here. Chrome. So you see we do have a tree, but it is not going to be static, so we did not add our static sprite system. Let's run into it. And it moves. So I guess the tank could run over a tree, but in our case, we want a tree to be static. So what we got to do is create our matter static sprite system. So let's go to our matter.ts here. We've already created some boilerplate again, just the basics of setting up, creating a system. So we've pre-made our query here. This is wrong. We only copy and pasted is what we did. So let's say we are really gonna want the matter static sprite. That is the only component we want here. Any component, is that true? No, we also want matter sprite because we need to know matter sprite. So if it's got to be a matter sprite and a matter static sprite. So they have both of these components on. We know that we can set that to static. I guess you could omit this. I don't know. That will be up to you. It'll work either way. You'll see when we do this, do the code here. So let's get our enter query. We're going to do this one time when the component is first added. We'll also want the exit. So let's just say we want to start out static, and then we want to unstatic you. So we want to do an exit query as well. So first, let's do our enter query. So const query enter. I'll just call this on query enter as well. On query enter. So enter query. Let's loop through these. Let's do a for of here. So let's call this ID, and then it's going to be. Oh, I gotta do this. Enter entities. On query enter, giving it the world. Okay, here is going to be enter entities. Enter entities. This is just a convenience of writing a more normal for loop. So ID here is the ID of the entity. So let's get the sprite from our sprite app. Matter sprites by ID dot get ID. As usual, we want to make sure if there is no sprite that we will still not break, so we can just skip any logic here if we don't have a sprite, because we need our sprite to set it as static. So sprite dot is static. We want to set this to true. So, set is set static. Set static is what we want to call. Set that to true. So this is going to make our sprite static when we first add this component to our entity. So let's just run this, and then we'll go back to the exit query. Let's come here. Let's put this right after our matter sprite system. So create matter static sprite system. We don't need anything passed in. Now let's go back to Chrome. Let's look at our tree. Let's see, our tree does not have the right, oh no, it does. Matter static sprite, let's just make sure what we did here. Matter static sprite. That looks good, that looks good. This should be a blue one. Refresh. Okay, let's go to our source here, matter.ts, and let's look at our matter static sprite. Let's see what we got. Nothing. Create matter static sprite system. Okay, so there's always no entities with those two because we must have missed an entity. Matter sprite, matter static sprite. Tree large, tree large. Let's come here. Matter static sprite. Let's just make sure we have the right one. Matter static sprite. On enter. So it is at least on enter. So we can refresh. This should hit one time. Okay, it does. Great. So let's see. So there is a sprite. If not sprite, continue. sprite set static true. Although it is definitely not static. Oh, it is. Okay, so it's arcade physics that has the blue border. Got confused there, but you get to see some debugging. Should have tested first. So there's our tree. It's static. I can't push it. So that's what I expect. All right, awesome. All the code did look good, and so that's working. Now, for let's get rid of Chrome. For removing staticness, if we were to remove this this component, we can get an exit query. So let's just do this. Const on query exit. So exit query, pass in the query, and it'll be very similar to the top here. We're going to do exit entities on query exit. We are going to do a for of again. So iterator is going to be the ID exit entities, and we're going to do something very similar. Just copy this part, say all of it, and the only difference being we're going to set this to false. So if we removed a component for whatever reason, we're going to set that to false, and so we got that. Nothing should change with how it works. Let's bring back Chrome. Let's hit this tree. Boom. Okay. This tree does not move. It's a mighty tree. Now, if we were to remove the static at some point, so let's test this live. I'm not actually sure this is going to work or not. I'll just call set timeout very simply, and then do remove component from bit.ecs here. This dot world, we're going to remove the matter static sprite from our large tree, and let's just say we're going to do it, I don't know, after 3 seconds. Okay, let's see. So there we go. No longer is it static. So it does, in fact, this is just saying that it may not be defined here, but that's just a test. Doesn't matter. But you can see that it did work. Our tree is normally static. After we did a set timeout here, just to remove that component, our tree was no longer static. And so that is adding a static sprite. So if you wanted to add a small tree or whatever other static things you want, you can go ahead and do that with what you've learned here. So there we have our static sprite with our dynamic bodies here in Phaser 3 with Matter.js, using ECS with bit.ecs, so that's all working. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe for more videos on using Phaser 3 with ECS and other web technologies.